Hello, everyone. It's your boy Hollywood Truth here. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about intimacy. It's one of the chapters in my book, The Power of the Flower, Broken Man's Guide to Intimacy. Really kind of focuses in on the things that make a relationship work, outside of the parts that we focus on a lot as individuals. So, let's focus on the sex part for a minute, right? Because when people hear intimacy, the first thing they dial in on is sex. One of our big mistakes, but it is a part of it. But myth and misrepresentation puts way too much pressure on the sexual part of a relationship. So we have to relieve that pressure by understanding our person in other ways. Right? Stop basing intimacy on the best sex person. I hear everybody talk about, this person was the best, and a lot of people like to tell those stories, but let's be honest, right? Let's take a step back, right? Think 10 years later. Now that person has a bum knee, right? Or the female that was the best sex partner, not only ended up being your best, but the best in the city for everybody at the end of the day. So you have to be careful what you want or what you ask for as you get later in life, because then you have to take everything that comes with it. Ladies, as you get older, great sex is no longer about that dude that humped the hell out of you, right? And tossed you around the house for a couple hours. It gets realer than that, because any man can hump and buy you stuff, but can they build with you a better life, a better purpose? And I'm not saying that sex isn't important. I'm just advising you that you don't want to base your intimacy on sex alone, because it'll deteriorate as you grow older, whether you like it or not. Do not end up in 2 years in, right? And the sex isn't what it used to be, and you realize that you'd rather watch paint dry than have a real conversation with this person, right? Great in bed, but the rest of it doesn't make any sense. So we have to find ways to build on that outside of our sexual relationship, because, you dumb as a rock 2 years later, but the only story you have is that they're the best sex person. And that's a situation that makes us feel good when we say it out loud, but it's not the curb on how much they care and how much they appreciate the person that they're with. Right? So, fellas, you know the girl I'm talking about, right? The one that does that trick that blows your mind, something that's different from anything you've ever been used to, right? But the reality is, you get caught up with that female, you end up with her, and then you realize that she can't do the 99 other things that that person that you love can. So you're taking that split second, to ride a new ride or try something different, but you're forgetting about all the reasons around how you molded into the person that you are, what that person has done, the backbone that they've been for you, the understanding that they've had, the peace and tranquility within the relationship. But they're not doing one or two of those things anymore, so we start to seek outside of that or look for something to cure those ills. The reality is, we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're going to lose everything that we truly love. And listen, fellas, just because men have those blue pills to pop doesn't mean we're still as agile as we used to be. So we think that that's our trigger as we get older. We got a little something to keep it stiff. But the reality is, you still have to control your body and what goes with it at the end of the day. So don't let that be your downfall or your belief in time that you're always going to be as good as you should be, because you'll be able to keep it up. There's more to it at the end of the day. The problem for us is we have to explore. Men have to explore like it's a map, right? Because no matter how good you are when it comes to raw sex, the reality is somebody is always going to sling that thing better than you. That's the reality. Somebody out there is slinging that thing better than you are. So get your mind away from that one part of it, or think that you can hold on to a relationship because you're still doing that thing the right way, or you still make it perk up a little bit, because at the end of the day, there's more to intimacy. There's more of an understanding. We have to continue to court our women. No different than we did when we originally met them. Keep looking at her the same way you did the first time that you met, right? Keep touching them as if you want to be the last to ever do it. not just because it's in the moment. Lazy sex is okay at the end of the day, but it's all about what we determine, how we feel like that person is connected us, the way they touch us, the way they talk to us, the way they show us respect on a regular basis. All of that at some point becomes more important than the act itself. You know, we lose that courting aspect because I think we feel like we have them, right? But a woman, she fell into the relationship based on the way you courted her. So obviously that was exciting, and we have to piece that stuff together and realize how often we need to do it and what we need to do. You know, corny or not, guys, I'm an open the door guy. You know, I pull out a seat. I've got an old school mentality, but it's really about the respect that I have for women and the women that raised me and that have been around me as I've grown up. So it can be corny at the end of the day, as long as it's appreciated by the one that you love. Because sex is the easy part. It's how you continue to connect after that that builds the sustainability necessary to build love, life, and a future. Right? Fella, you don't bite the Tootsie Pop to get right to the middle. Right? You work around it a little bit. What happened to one petal at a time? Right? She loves me not. She loves me not. And then you go in. You don't skip you don't skip past all the petals and jump right into her flower. You got to make that thing bloom a little bit before you get in there. Take care of it. Make everything around it feel the same so that when you get to that, it will be exactly what you want it to be. The goal is to pay attention to every petal on that rose and make sure that it feels like the rest of the flower feels. You can't just jump your way into being a good lover. We all think we are to some degree, and then we learn in time, if we're open to it, how to become better. And how to understand that lovemaking is really about your partner getting to where they need to be. Right? I'm going to get mine in a box, in a closet, anywhere on my own. Whatever has to happen is going to happen. But them getting theirs, there's a different feel to that. There's a different connection. You have to treat the body, like I said, like a map. Just explore it. You know, they'll let you know when you're going in the right direction. They'll let you know when you're hitting the right locations. And ladies, treat it like a treasure hunt. It's your treasure to open up at will. So make them earn it. At some point, fellas, the reality is women want it to be a nice drive-through. They don't want it to be an all-night buffet all the time. No matter how much we dislike it, our bodies are going to change. Right? Old age kicks in. Women deal with menopause and other changes to their bodies. People are not as comfortable with their bodies as they get older. You know, they're not as free. But women do not lose their want for loving. Right? A flower only dies if we don't take care of it. So maybe a woman's drive is lost because we're not watering that flower the way we need to or the way we used to. Intimacy is everything necessary to stay connected outside of the bedroom. If you do that, everything inside the bedroom will go to the next level. It's no longer about that good morning booty, right? That wake it up to that good morning booty. Well, I guess that's a lie, you know, because that's pretty dope too. But let me not digress. For me, it's that kiss during the morning workout, right? Where she comes in and wipes the sweat off to give me a kiss. And I get it, everybody does that, right? But for me, it's that statement that says, you know what? Me and you today, honey. We're riding. No matter what happens, I got you. And that's the difference. You know, that simplicity and understanding what that means and understanding where your partner is, and that when you walk through together, whatever that door is, or whatever else is going on. It's about 2 steps at a time instead of one. And once you start to do that together, you start to build on what you've already had. If you fall in love with someone without truly knowing who they are, imagine if you take the time after you start to fall in love with them to fall in love with everything about them. You see, later in life, I connected with someone on levels that I didn't even know were possible. So the sex became the best that I ever had. The touch, the feel, all of that stuff is different. It's not about the tricks or that one trick pony anymore. It's about knowing that that person next to you feels as secure as you do. Your partner should encourage, right, and demand that you continue to love you so that you can love your partner to the fullest. We all jump out of relationships and we think we're prepared to make that next step. We fall into it with the same tendencies. We allow the same things to happen. We don't rebuild ourselves or prove that we are worthy of what we really are. So we have to continue to make sure, because it's impossible for somebody to love someone else if they do not love themselves. I'm going to say that again. You cannot love somebody to the fullest if you're not in love with you. And if that person isn't pushing the love for you as much as they are for them, it's not the right person. You know, sex is now about the person that touches you differently than anyone else ever has. The one that makes you feel safe, right? Secure, that makes you want to walk through the fire with them. And the effort that we show, it lets them know that we're consistently interested. They're not trying to find out why we don't look at them the same anymore, or why we don't touch them the same anymore. You know, our interest is always going to keep them as interested as we need them to be. And compromise, guys, it's sexy. Right? We look at compromise as a thing that we have to do because someone else wants to or we don't want to. We do it for our kids all the time. We don't want to sit on that hot field every week, but we're there to support. So why would we not do that for the person that we either had those children with or that have stepped in to be a mother or father to those children? Right? Compromise is sexy. When you both do it the right way, and then find the right reasons to do it. Right? I'm talking about finding a way to love doing it because you're doing it with them. Not, oh, I got to go over here because that's where the husband wants to go, or that's where the wife wants to go. No, you find out that you fall in love with those other things that you probably didn't do or watch or want to before because of the person that you're doing it with. Because you're laughing with them, because you're enjoying a moment with them. And in all honesty, it wouldn't matter what was on TV. If it's the right relationship, you're going to find a way to make a day of it or a night of it. And it may not entail all the other stuff. But should we shred the relationship because one thing's a little bit different than it used to be? Relationships, they're hard, but we make them harder by putting the onus on certain things. Whatever we're feeling in that moment, that's what the other person needs to be doing or what needs to be happening without thinking about how they're feeling. Learning to love what they love as they continue to love it is a beautiful thing. If they know that you're not just there because you have to be, but you're there because you want to enjoy it with them, you will literally enjoy it just because of how much your partner does, and seeing them in their moment, knowing that they're excited because of what's going on, but more excited because you're there doing it with them. Don't use your woman as a statue for certain events, right, that you should show it with your woman at. Show your strength as a couple in every event. And some do well spending time apart, and that's okay, right? Some can't exist in a scenario where they're together all the time. But what I would do is I'd give you the advice to say, look, as long as both know where home is and how to find your way back to that pillow that you should sleep on, there's nothing wrong with getting out with friends and having some fun as well. You just have to understand that in every scenario, whether you're by yourself or with your person, you represent that person. And make sure and check yourself in situations where you need to. Whether they're there or not, whatever is going on, they're always represented. The wife and I do everything together because not because we're supposed to, right? Because we enjoy it. Some of what I talked about before. But people know if there's not an invite for the husband and the wife, don't even send it. That's just how we get down. We do it because there's no one else in the world that we want to do it with more. We enjoy anything and everything because it's better with her. You know, a young fella asked me one time, he said, so you're the guy that takes sand to the beach all the time. And I chuckled a little bit, and I can get that because you don't see many scenarios where the wife and I aren't together, or, we're not at the same place at the same time. But my response to that was, with her, I'm always at the beach. I just take her to the sand every now and then. And that's the reality of it. If you love what you do together, then you start to love each other even more. So these are all small parts of what people don't think about or focus on when they're thinking about relationships. It's the breakdown in certain things that start to put more pressure on the relationship than's necessary. Because real intimacy that lasts the test of time includes friendship. And I know that's the old adage, right? But friendship is important. You need to rock with your person. You need to feel like, you know what? Back in the day, I probably would have did this with 5 or 6 of my friends, but, I laugh every time I'm out with her or him. I have a great time. We have a few drinks. We understand the boundaries of making sure that we enjoy ourselves and finding time to do that and different ways to do that so that every time we do, we're building on that relationship. The conversations that we have, they're real. No different than friends would have. Because if you don't respect somebody as a partner or a pure voice in the relationship, then it starts to get heavier on one side than the other. And the minute that people know that, they try to poke holes into that relationship or find reasons why it's not working. Rebuild together. We all have broken edges and broken wings coming out of one relationship into another. It's how it's going to be. But it's what we do with that information. Do we build a wall that's too tall to knock down? Whatever your broken edges are or were going into the new relationship, it's okay. That's part of the conversation that you're going to have. There may be boundaries around things that you put up with before that you're not going to put up with again. And 9 times out of 10, the later in life you get, the more other people have experienced it as well. It's okay to keep some of the bricks up in those walls if somebody knocked them down and broke you in the process. But don't put them up to the point where you can't see the vision of what's next for you, where you stop believing in love and what encompasses that, right? When you stop thinking that you have the ability or you deserve the ability to be happy. When you stop settling for what you think is there and just continue to love you until you find out what your equal is. What that perfect piece to your puzzle is, not someone else's. Family. The biggest quote I can say here is those that love together, stay together. Right? The toughest thing in the world to do is to ask someone who has loved someone their entire life, their family, and then want to love their person for the rest of their life, but they can't seem to click. It makes it extremely hard, right? Because asking someone to give up anybody that they love is tough. Even when we lose them, we don't want to let them go. But having to try to play a balance between the love of your family and the love for your future is asking a lot. So connect with those people. The reality is there is a piece of those family members in them. So if you don't like them, at some point, there may be parts that you don't like about your person. But if you learn to love those folks, or at least to put the work in to try to connect with them, think about the understanding that you'll have of your person, deeper and more depth than you did before, and all the other reasons to love them. You can't ask people to choose. When you do that, it's a decision that will impact the rest of their lives. So you make the connection. Listen, the reality is nobody's ever going to be good enough for our kids. I say that in every video that I do pretty much, in our eyes. But it doesn't mean that we need to put the blinders up and immediately press against them. Because the reality is, if your children fall in love, it doesn't matter who it is or whether you agree with it or not. Trying to fight that is the worst battle in the world. So find ways to connect. Find ways to connect with their family. Figure things like that out early, because that's going to be the most important thing to anyone and everyone, and it should be. May not be a father or may not be a mother in the picture. You know, it's not always a full family, but that's even more reason to connect, because that's less that they have to love. But if that becomes as important to you as it does to them, that is a bond of love that'll never be broken. Because now it becomes about the family you build instead of just the family that you have. Talk about finances and debt, right? What makes you both comfortable? What's that number that makes you feel good about what's next and what you're going to do after that? What do you want to accomplish? Are you in some ways going in the same direction? Because again, you need to know those things. Where do you want to live now and then? Right? Maybe you want to move to Florida and this person says, there's no way I'm going there. Well, then what do we do? Children. Talk about children, how many you want to have. And most importantly, if you enter a relationship with children, make sure it's the right person and they're as committed to them as they would be to their own. You can't step in to a single mama scenario or a single daddy scenario and try to play sides. It's not going to work. If you're not all in, don't let them in. And sex. Why not talk about sex? That way there's no excuse to get that fix on the side. If you're letting your woman or your man know what you need or what's going to make you happy or what excites you and they're not interested in that, well, that's a problem as well. But don't not talk about it and then go get some and say, well, she did that thing or he did that thing that you don't do anymore. That's not fair. Sex changes. Everything changes hormonally. Again, we've discussed that. So maybe there's a reason why that thing isn't happening. But maybe if they knew how important it was to you, it would. Right? So you got to talk about everything. Communication, communication. If you're honest in communication about things like this, again, you're not surprised a year later that your aspirations do not align. You already have the information. What about safety? That feeling of choosing that person in every situation. They help you figure out what your next move is. They help create that move. They help you love again because now you believe in it. Someone is showing you something that you've never seen before because you're taking away all the things that we've been obsessed with in regard to relationships and just allowing it to happen naturally. You know, when I talk about families, my father-in-law, he's a man that I probably would have never had a convo with, right? But with limited conversation, he gave me more knowledge than I can reciprocate. The way his daughters loved him as a father, the way he always put his family first, the way a look could give you more satisfaction than 1,000 words. This man impacted me in a way and gave me something without a father growing up that I never had before. But we were different. We didn't align on everything that we do, say, how we grew up. But it was important for me to take the time to try to get to know them. So, there's always going to be work there. And again, you're not going to get away with all of them, but you don't want to be the person that pushes away. You want to be the person that has no regrets because you tried to do everything that you possibly could. So again, I appreciate the conversation. My book is again called Power of the Flower. You can find it on Amazon. My publisher is Xibris. That's XLIBRIS.com. And it's on a lot of local bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, things of that sort. But there are other chapters in the book that will evolve this conversation, from just the intimacy part of it. Chapter that focuses on communication, constant conversation, and I dabbled in that a little bit in this convo. Foreplay. I talk about it all the time. And that means different things to different people. So I don't give you a rundown of what to do, but I talk about some things that you can do. There's literally a chapter called Watch Porn. It's another way to connect with your person, right? With the one that you love, as there should be no boundaries with their person. There are no boundaries when it comes to the person I love. That whole I won't or I can't do that, there's no such thing anymore because I trust that person. There's no more embarrassment or things. If we do get it wrong or don't get it right, that's okay too, right? But again, I implore you, be careful of the type of porn that you watch. You know, the expectations that you set, you want to make sure that one or the other won't be able to keep up with them at some point. So this isn't about full bore or what specific type to watch. It's just another way as relationships grow for you to find those quirky ways or those uncomfortable ways to bring out other parts of your person sexually and intimately. Watching something else that makes you want to touch and feel, you know, in that moment that a million other things in the day go on. So it touches on that a little bit in an intimate way, right? Not hardcore porn where people are doing crazy stuff. It's within the limits of your sexual parameters, but giving you a little bit of light and something different to try at the end of the day. My favorite in the book are the intimacy underdog chapters because those dial in on the real attributes of how to truly connect with your partner and be the consistent lover necessary, regardless of the changes in their bodies, their vision, their minds, or their abilities. If you get a chance, please grab a copy of the book. I'm not a writer per se, but I think if you have a story to tell, you know, it's always a good thing at the end of the day. And writers are probed to do this. You know, this is what they do every day. Journalists, I mean, they need more credit than for anybody just to be able to jump in and write a book. But when you have a successful story, you know, after tragedy and things of that sort, you have the right, you built the equity to be able to talk about it, especially if those things then help somebody else or give them that light at the end of the tunnel that they don't see. It also includes a story of myself. Some of the things that I was challenged with as a very young man and dealing with older women and how that, you know, curtailed my journey of connecting with people over time and what sex really meant at the end of the day as I got older. If you get a chance, take a look and listen to some of my other videos as well. Black Hope, Black Anxiety, Love Thyself. I'm going to continue to drop these on a regular basis. And remember, as always, if your connection is built on so much more, it will never be destroyed by one aspect of it. Intimacy is not what you do while you're in it. It is about how you make that flower bloom when you're not. Loving is not just about the goodness in between. It is about loving their mind, body, and soul. And that includes their imperfections. And most importantly, think about a way of making them fall in love with the way you touch them without using your hands. Find that love, guys. There's more to it. And if your relationship bends or breaks based on one thing, then build it up so that's not possible. The strength is in love. It's not about the characteristics of it. Love as much as you can in every way you can possible. I love you. Hollywood Truth, out.